Welcome back. This is the Scaling Secrets podcast. This is where we talk about getting your business to 7 and 8 figures and beyond. And we're here with Keri Blair. Now, Keri is the CEO of the Style Studio, and Keri has dedicated her life to bringing about an inner transformation in people through her unique approach to personal styling and image consulting. She's been called the secret weapon, and she's all about inner transformation, embodied style, stepping into your up level, self care, and so much more. So, Keri, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So, we introduced you a little bit there, but like in your own words, what's Miss Keri all about? What's the elevator pitch? What's your uniqueness?
Well, that's an open question, right? What's Carrie all about? But
Yeah, what makes you tick?
essentially, I have been a personal stylist for over 21 years now. And I really started it because I knew that it could make a huge difference for people if they felt amazing about how they looked each and every day. They would make more money, meet the love of their life, be successful. And that's what I've been giving the last 2 decades of my life to.
Well, wonderful. And so, personal stylist, I literally have no idea what that means. So, like, what does that even look like from like a client point of view? Do
Yeah.
you replace their wardrobe? Do you tell
Yeah.
them what to wear every day? How do you even begin?
I love that you said that because back when I started, no one knew what it was. Absolutely no one. There weren't smartphones. There was no such thing as what not to wear. When I started this business and told people what I would do, they would say, "What? Why would someone need you to dress them?" So essentially, to dumb it down a little bit, I rebrand people. Everybody knows branding in businesses is super important, but they don't realize how important branding is to themselves. And a lot of people are their own brand, their business brand. So being a personal stylist for me is all about rebranding someone. So looking to see what are their goals, what do they want to accomplish, and what's holding them back from that. And I use clothing as an avenue for breakthroughs in success, essentially. So
Yeah.
yes, we talk about going through people's closets and buying them things that they need. So there's like the tactical what I do, but essentially it's really about figuring out who you are on the inside and having that shine through to the outside so that the world understands who you are in those first 3 seconds of meeting you or less.
This topic, it comes up when I like interview people like you. There's always this kind of issue of, well, where's your business stuck? And then
Mhm.
the answer is some form of the business is an expression of yourself, and then there's that kind of inner self. There's the real you who's just like begging to come out, that's been covered up by all these layers. And sometimes it takes kind of that outside force, and who knows what the angle is, right? Sometimes you need like a business coach, or sometimes we need someone like you to just like peel away the layers and make the real greatness come about. And it's kind of hard to get to that conclusion, right? Because we've been
Mhm.
like stuck in our own head and stuck in our own thoughts, and we need someone just from the outside looking in to look at us and just be like, okay, here's what needs to change. And so I'm sure you have some kind of fun, amazing stories along these lines, right? Like a
Of
before and
course.
after, the makeover. So do any of
Yeah.
those apply here? Can you tell us a fun
Okay.
story about someone who's just life and business you just completely upended?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think that most people don't consider how they look every day. Is that fair?
Yes, right.
Especially men, but women too. I feel like women specifically, we are last on our priority list. Everyone else comes before us, right? The business, the family, etc. But men also. And so people go about life getting dressed haphazardly. And just recently, I referred to this as a character in your favorite show. So I don't know what your favorite TV show is or your favorite movie, but each one of those characters has been perfectly curated for hundreds and hundreds of hours, right? The way that they speak, what kind of things they say, how they dress, how they walk. Well, we are the character in our own lives, but we're not putting that attention into our brand or who our character development is, right? We're just throwing on t-shirt or a white shirt or what have you, and then we go about our day. But if you can curate what your look is and what you actually want to tell the world, everything can change. So yeah, we've impacted hundreds of people's lives. I had this woman who came to me once, and she was she was a director in a large corporation and wanted to be the VP. And when we first met, she did not look like a VP. And she told me her goals, and she told me what she wanted to accomplish. And she said, realistically, it's going to take me 2 years to land the VP position. And I'm like, let's go to work. And we did a transformation. She then started looking like a VP. And once you look like a VP, what happens next? Of course, you start acting like a VP, right? And she ended up getting the position within 6 months. That's
Nice.
the power of personal branding. So some people say like how you look is superficial, but I guarantee you it's not, because in 3 seconds or less, every person that you encounter is making a split-second judgment about what you're capable of, if you're valuable to them, if they want to get to know you, if they want to date you, if they want to give you their money, etc., right? And so if you can take control of that and have them know what you want them to know about you rather than be haphazard, life changes quickly and kind of effortlessly.
Once you get over that hump, once you get over that feeling that it's superficial, and so
Yeah.
it sort of in my head, the logical sequence of what you said there is you said that well, the first step is to figure out like, who you want to be, where
Yeah.
you want to go, right? Who do you want to be thought of? If you want to
Yeah.
be that VP, then that's the first step, and then the second step is you say, okay, now what do I want to look like? And then once you get that figured out, then kind of the inside happens, and then you kind of feel and act like that. And then I imagine that at that point, then subconscious, that's not all the work, but subconsciously you kind of get over that hurdle, and then you begin kind of putting out what you meant to put out in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just to back up for a minute, that first impression is really imperative. And again, I'm going to relate it to businesses. So when you start a business, people spend a fortune in time and money perfectly curating that brand, right? From fonts to websites to social media to to the people who represent the company, but they don't think of it in terms of themselves. So if you could break it down to maybe 3 to 5 adjectives that best describe who you really are on the inside, that you really want people to get to know about who you are. And this sometimes is the hardest question I can ask a person, right? Because most people don't think about that. They just think like, well, I'm just me. Okay, but there are aspects of you that are amazing. And that's what we want to bring to the outside. That if people actually understood who you were in these 3 to 5 adjectives, they would want to get to know you. They would want to do business with you. And so you can attract what you want in life and get rid of what you don't want in life. Can I give
And
you
that,
an example of how powerful this is?
yes, please.
Okay. So we're going to pretend for a minute. So pretend that you're at a party or a networking event and you're looking across the room. The first thing that you do is you look to see, like, okay, who do I want to meet? What kind of okay, you see someone from across the room and you instantly determine if you want to get to know them or not, etc. So let's say you're at a networking event and you see this guy from across the room. I always use this guy, Steve. Don't worry, Steve is not real, okay? There's this guy, Steve, across the room. And he's short, he's portly, he's bald, he's has these super thick glasses on. The first thing that comes to mind for me is an accountant, which I love accountants. I have nothing going on about them. But you look across the room and I'm not an accountant. So I think, wow, I don't have much in common with it, Steve. And this is all happening in the background without my awareness, right? Fast forward. A couple hours later, my best friend comes over to me and she brings Steve over and she says, oh my gosh, Keri, have you met Steve? And I'm like, no. And she introduces me to him. He is the funniest man ever. I love his personality. He's so fun to be with. I have the best time of my life. The problem is, I would have never met him because his look wasn't something that fit within my parameters of like what's going to draw me to him. But if he had curated his style in such a way that I could understand that he's this funny, vivacious, awesome, amazing guy, then I would have been more attracted to meet him. And we only get one chance to make a great first impression. So how much are we missing out on because we're not curating it and we're being haphazard?
Probably missing out on quite a bit by not breaking through, right? And by
Yeah.
not kind of having that opportunity to jumpstart the conversation and just by leaving things to chance. And so
Yeah.
when you ask someone to do kind of this thought exercise, right, of like the 3 to 5 adjectives, we said
Mhm.
that that's kind of might be like a inner looking, maybe even like a
Yeah.
slow or painful process, but like are the answers all over the place or just like to give us an idea of like what we should be thinking or answering? What are is there any like commonalities in the answers?
So a lot of people want to be portrayed as successful, as confident, as fun, as approachable, as so they vary, right? Because we're all unique individuals. So it depends on what your unique proposition is. But there's something along those lines. Like, what are the best qualities about you? And then if people have a hard time, I always ask them, what would your spouse say about you? Or what would your best friend say about you? What are those amazing qualities that you have? That's what we want to bring out. So that if people look at you, it's kind of like law of attraction, right? So if people look at you and they just get who you are, they're attracted to that. Or they're not. That's great too.
Right, pushing away the people that you don't want.
Yep, and
Awesome.
attracting the people that you do. And then it's relatively it's relatively fast how quickly everything can happen, right? The ball starts rolling, VP position in 6 months. Or I had a client who wanted to meet the love of her life, and we redesigned her image, and in a month she met him. And they started dating. So it's amazing the results that you can produce when you put a little time and energy into branding yourself.
Yeah, just a little bit of that focus that we all have to wear clothes. We all have to wear some style. It might be out of date, it might be random, and there definitely is that value, especially in today's like curated world, as you say, right? Where
Yeah.
there's for sure the possibility to be too extreme, to be too polished, but we could all use just that little bit of awareness and that thinking about what our style is and what we're putting out there. And so that's interesting that you're mentioning that. So this has multiple purposes, right? Depending
Mhm.
on what someone's goal is. Like the
Yeah.
first when we first started talking, I was like, okay, well, it makes sense to like, advance your career. But you said it's also that the lady contacted you or started this process because she wants to meet her relationship goals. And so are those the only like functions? Like what are people after when they're come to you for this kind of style advice?
I love that question. Everything in life. Isn't that what we're all after right now? Right?
Right.
Happiness, fulfillment, success, like having your dreams be fulfilled. That's what I'm all about. So it doesn't matter what it is, let's fulfill it. And most importantly, what my magic is having people love themselves. So it's not just about someone looking at you from across the room at an event. It's about, what do you see when you look in the mirror? See, most people don't care. They just get dressed and they get out the door. But we spend so much time on our minds, which I love, right? Gaining knowledge and experience and all of these things. But then we don't take stock in how we look and what we're saying to the world. But it's also like, do I love the way that I look? That gives you more confidence, which will have you change your life. So, what people are after is everything. And this is an easy way, such an easy way. When you change the way you look, you change your life. So it's a simple way to get what you want in life.
And we're stumbling on something that's kind of an interesting tangent here, which is this kind of idea that maybe some people don't love themselves enough, or maybe
Yeah.
some people just have the low self-esteem and the kind of the self-sabotage. And as you said, this is an easy way, maybe not to solve the whole problem, but to kind of overcome a lot of that. And so
Yeah.
can you unpack that a little bit, or can you tell us about, because I know that you're all about like, self-care and self-improvement as well. So like,
Yeah.
what do you see as far as people and their low self-esteem and their self-sabotage?
Yeah. Well, when you don't focus on yourself for so long, it's easy to get low self esteem, right? If you focus on everyone else around you. And so if you start with spending a few minutes on you. So I don't know. I'm a big advocate of self care. So you brought up self care. I think you should start every day with some sort of self-care, whatever that is for you. For me, it's meditation and a walk in nature. That's how I get connected and start my day. But if I start my day taking care of myself and then I do the next thing, which is go in my closet, and I hate everything that's in there and it doesn't make me feel good, then the rest of my day, quite frankly, is crap, right?
Fair
Whereas
enough.
if I do those self-care things and then I walk into my closet and what I put on my body feels so great to me, and I look in the mirror and I think, wow, I'm going to conquer the world today, then nothing can mess with me that day. And I feel more powerful and I feel more alive. And that's what's important.
That makes a lot of sense. Set yourself up for success, in other words. And you're even reminding me that just like this very lately, I've been waking up at 4 a.m. And just this very morning, I woke up and I started to look at my phone, and I was like, "Oh no, wait a second! I don't. Why would I want to start the day super stressed?" And I just spent those kind of quiet, dark time in the morning, just chilling out, not being in a rush. And then even right before hopping on this podcast with you, I had about 15 minutes free, and I walked around the block. And could I have stayed at the computer and squeezed in every last little minute and drop of work? Well, sure, but I just told myself, like, I need to reset and take care of myself and calm down and take it easy. And so you're definitely preaching to the choir
I
here as
love it.
far as these reminders about, like, even though it seems counterintuitive, but then about like being kind to yourself and just not cramming the schedule full of all these things, and it delivers those benefits of being way better. And so,
Yeah.
since this is the Scaling Secrets podcast, I'm curious to know, like, how you kind of balance the self care and the relaxing with also like building your business to the size that it should be. So, I mean, what do you have to say about your business struggles and just your adventures in scaling?
Love that. So I love what you said that you stopped what you were doing and you went on a walk. Recently, I've been in this mode where if I'm experiencing struggle, I feel like we've been trained to like grind it out if you're experiencing struggle in business. And recently, I'm like, no, if I'm not in the flow, I go. That's my theory. So if I'm working and things aren't creatively coming to me, and what I'm talking about is if I'm working on marketing or some project, not if I'm working with a client, but if I'm working on marketing or something and building the business and I'm hitting a wall, I'll go for a walk as well. I'll just go for a walk until I can start hearing again, right? Because I don't think I'm alone in that I'm going to grind it out every time. I think there's other things at play that when I can clear my mind and be in nature, I can hear, I don't know, divine guidance or my own inner wisdom or whatever you believe in. So I think that's a powerful lesson that I've been learning. So I think self care comes first. So I'm also a mom of an 11-year-old. So I have a lot to manage. So I'm a wife, a mom of an 11-year-old. I own a business, have a staff, and I'm creating a new business also. So there's a lot to manage. But if you're not taking care of yourself from the inside first, then you're not going to be as happy with the rewards that you get at the end, is my belief. Right. So if I just sit here and grind it out and work 60 hours a week, but I don't have a great quality of life, what's that for? Sure, I could make a ton of money but I feel like you can make a ton of money and love your life. You can be successful and love yourself and be there for the people in your life. So I guess my whole thing is about balance.
I
And if
love that, and I'm in complete agreement with you.
good, I mean, like if we're unbalanced, then everything's harder in life. But if we can like just sit back for a minute and go, oh, okay, this is what I have to do. It's either flowing now or it'll flow later. It's okay. And giving ourselves a break, which is a new reality for me because being a business owner for 2 decades, I wasn't always that way. Sometimes I would grind it out. So I think that's really important. And that's what I try to work with my clients on is again, loving yourself comes first and then life becomes easier. I have one
Love
quick
yourself
story
first
for
to
you.
make life come easier.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I have one quick story that just came up for me. I worked with this
Perfect.
guy recently and he was really, really successful. And he didn't look successful. And he didn't look, he kind of looked scary, to be honest with you, when you would see him walking down the street. And when I got to know him, he's like the kindest man ever. And I started working with him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're this amazing guy, but nobody can see it. And he had no idea that he wasn't portraying who he was. So we worked together through a series of events over weeks. And at the end, he went to a party with a bunch of friends and family. And I was like, how did it go? He said, people couldn't even believe the way I looked. He was confident, but then people looked at him and they were like, oh my gosh, you look unbelievable. And they started interacting with him differently. And then I said, well, what was that like for you? And he said, to be honest, looking good makes me want to be a better man. And I thought that was so powerful. He was like, it makes me want to be kinder to people. It makes me want to be more gentle with myself. It makes me want to be a better person. And that's what I'm all about, is loving yourself so that you can accomplish more in life, be a better person, and I don't know, have everything you ever dreamed of.
And we all want that.
We all
And so
want
I'm getting some kind of recurring themes in our conversation. And one that I just think is really important, and like I'm reminding myself, is that this whole idea of the makeover, for lack of a better term,
yeah.
it's not about being someone who you're not. It's not about playing a character. It's about being the real you, and to be a happier you. And then the outward goal of it is to avoid being the best kept secret, because we all have these potentials as far as our business and our personal life, but it's just so easy to be closed off and just deliver the wrong message visually, and then we never even get that door to open. So kind of what's coming through my mind here.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure, and as we're beginning to kind of wind down the last kind of 8 to 10 minutes of our conversation, that we kind of talk about something about like your struggles or your surprises. And you've been through all these adventures, right? You've been through the 11-year-old kid and all this parenting and the business ups and downs and hiring the staff. And so has anything along the way just really surprised you that you think is worth remarking about right now?
Sure. I am in the middle of a current struggle, which I'm happy to share about. So I've had this business 21 years, very successful. I work with people running for governor, people who go to the White House, et cetera, right? And a couple years ago, I decided I wanted to make a bigger impact in the world. So how do you do that? Well, you have to work with more people. You can't just work one-on-one with celebrity type people. So I decided to create an online division of my business. And that's probably the most challenging thing I've done since starting this business. And most people make it look easy or make it sound easy. But the truth is, if you're going from a business of selling one-to-one to one-to-many, it's crazy how different it is. And it's crazy what people are looking for and speaking to the masses. So that's just one thing that I personally, going from being at the top of your game to at the bottom of the next game is completely humbling. And it's a worthy cause.
And a thing that we all need to be doing, right? If we're business owners, we need to be dynamic and go
Yeah.
through these transitions, because if you just kind of stuck and you're comfortable and you stay at the same place, next thing you know, the same place is 20% less and less, and that
Yeah.
seems to be a scary place to be. And so it seems like you're kind of going from like a sales mindset to a marketing mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
sales is all about like the single person and
Yeah.
working on them, what do they want? And then marketing, you have to kind of like scale and draw these abstractions and do all these other activities, which is outside of our comfort zone. But hey, that's the place where growth happens.
I,
And so,
yeah.
oh,
I absolutely love that. And yes, and if you're not taking risks every day, then what are you doing? Right?
you're
Because
you're just slowly withering away.
exactly, because that's the way it was. Business was so easy for me. We were making great money and super successful, and it wasn't enough. And so I find a lot of people get to that point where it's not about the money or the continued growth. It's about making a difference as well, and risking and stretching outside of your comfort zone, like you were saying.
I love it. Make a difference, take the risk, and stretch outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so, kind of along those lines, it constantly like refresh my mind and tell myself to like get out there more. Like what you're doing here, right? You're on a podcast.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to be in a podcast, but you are to raise your profile and get yourself out there. And so, do you have any words of advice for someone like me who says like, oh, do I really have to network? Do I really have to be on camera and socialize and network? If someone is constantly in this battle of talking themselves out
Mm-hmm.
of doing more and socializing. Do you have any quick words of wisdom along those lines?
Yeah, the truth is you don't have to. That's the truth. You don't have to. And what I always try to stay true to for myself is do what you love to do. If it's something that you hate to do, even though it's necessary, find someone else to do it for you. If it's not your strength and if you truly hate it, you're not going to be great at it. So either go beyond your barriers and become good at it or hire it out. But I believe that if you're doing what you love to do every day, that's where you're going to make the biggest impact.
I love it. So there are many paths, right? Either
Many.
you get better at it or you hire someone who is good at it to do it for you, but either way, get it done.
Yep.
And if someone is listening to our conversation today, which they are because they're at this point in the video, and they want to know more about you and like maybe they're interested in some of these ideas that you talked about of the makeover and figuring out their style and talking with you, what's the next step? How do they find your company and your website?
Yes. So my company is keriblair.com. It's KERI Blair.com. You can find me there. You can listen to my podcast, which is Style Your Dreams. And then your Instagram and YouTube are the Style Studio by KB. So we have tons of content out there, and we hope to make a difference for whoever watches it.
Whoever is maybe ready or just about ready to take that step and get outside their comfort zone. So you say Keri Blair, that's Keri Blair, and then that podcast is Style Your Dreams, is that right?
Style Your Dreams. Yep.
Wonderful. And if you're a podcast listener, what makes more sense than going into another podcast because you can get dialed in on what you really want and kind of become the person that you want to be and that you need to be and that you love to be, that way you love yourself, you love others, others love you, and just you get to where you want to go and then some. And so as we're winding down our conversation here, Keri, I always think it's fun to end with like a quote, moral, or lesson. So has anything come to mind for you as far as a quote, moral, or lesson that maybe has served you or can really help us out today?
Let's see. There's so many. Let me look behind me. Who you'll be a year from now depends on today.
I love it. So who you will be a year from now depends on today.
Yeah.
And who you are today is someone who is going right now to keriblair.com and also subscribing to Keri's podcast. That way you can get tuned into what you want to know. It's been very wonderful speaking with you today, Keri.
You're awesome. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
You're even more awesomer.